Hello, everybody. This is Eric Pennington, and this is the Spirit of EQ podcast. Today's podcast is about applying consequential thinking.
Life is a journey. Spirit of EQ helps shape and guide the road ahead for individuals, leaders, teams, and organizations striving to realize their full potential through emotional intelligence. Spirit of EQ is a coaching and consulting company that assists individuals and businesses to reach their full potential by developing emotional intelligence. In business, managers and leaders recognize the value of training to develop leadership skills. What they may not realize is that those skills are far more effective when they pay attention to not only performance, but also to people. Emotional intelligence is a crucial skill because people drive performance and emotions drive people. After this podcast, listen for a special opportunity to learn more.
Hey, Jeff, how are you?
I'm doing good.
And it's good to see you again. Good to hear your voice again. Applying consequential thinking. You know what? You got to tell me, what's consequential thinking?
All right. Consequential thinking is the ability, the skill to actually think through a process. If I do this, this is going to happen. If I don't do this, that's going to happen. And like all the other competencies, if you look at those, they all have a verb at the beginning. So in this case, we're learning how to apply consequential thinking to big decisions, little decisions through our life.
So, I guess a straightforward question would be, is this going to help me not make those dumb-headed decisions that sometimes, when you react to things, and I know we've talked about reacting versus responding. Is that kind of what it's designed for?
Yeah, what it does is it allows you to take the facts of a situation, facts, figures, whatever is going on in the situation, and then factor in the emotions of the situation. How am I feeling about this? What is my outcome that I want to have? And then use that to make the decisions, and then have an idea of what you think the outcome could be. What's going to happen? Is it going to get to the outcome that I want to have?
I know a lot of our listeners might be wondering, so I guess from the perspective, if I'm listening, how do I know if I'm a good candidate for this? Am I someone that typically loses my temper and reacts all the time, or is it just, it's great for anybody?
It's great for any person to think about it. A lot of people are already doing that naturally. They may not know it. Mm-hmm. And once they recognize the fact that, I am doing that, they'll be able to strengthen it. And a lot of people haven't recognized it. And so they do. They let the unchecked or ununderstood emotion drive their decisions. And sometimes that might be a good outcome, but most times you're not going to get the outcome that you really want.
So one thing I was going to ask you about, and I know you have some background in this outside of the Spirit of EQ. How about have you guys worked inside of the prison system as an example?
Well, we haven't really worked that much in doing actual EQ work in prison, but I've been involved in a prison ministry for over 25 years now. And it's very interesting, and I didn't really catch what they were doing until the last time I was on one of the weekends. We have a series of talks that we give to the residents. That's what we call the inmates, either, male or female, depending on what prison they're in. Mm-hmm. And the first talk we give is called Choices. And in this Choices talk, what we teach the residents is the difference between reacting to a situation and responding. And that's what we're talking about. If you respond to a situation, you've probably applied your consequential thinking. And if you really think it through to the outcome, okay, is this the outcome I want? On the other end, if you react, you don't think about that outcome. And in the case of most people in prison, they reacted to a situation instead of responded.
You mean as far as what
got them into the prison?
Okay, gotcha.
Or what's driving their life in the prison, how well they follow rules, how they get along with corrections officers, with other prisoners. And we start teaching them that. Let's, learn how to respond. And it was just funny. The last time I heard that talk given, I go, oh, EQ. They're doing.
Gotcha. Wow.
I think I've even given the talk in the past. And when you talk one-on-one with the residents, you'll find out they can relate to that if I would have responded to this situation, I probably wouldn't be here.
Gotcha.
That's an extreme case, but it works in all our lives.
It's interesting because I think from a parenting perspective, I've heard this before, and I'm sure I've probably thought it as well, is that, your kid at a certain age really knows how to push my buttons and those kind of things. And typically you hear it as, I just don't know what to do because they know how to push my buttons. Is that something a parent would probably could use?
Yeah, that's it could be used in a situation like that. One, we go back to a competency we talked about before where we recognize a pattern, which could be a pattern in ourselves or it could be a pattern in this case in your child.
Yep.
Okay. Because they've recognized your pattern. It gets complicated. They've recognized your pattern. So the kid goes, I know if I do this, it's going to tilt mom, tilt like pinball, and she's just going to whatever.
Right.
And then I get my way. Well, they've actually applied consequential thinking then because they know if they push that button, they're going to get the result they want. Now, that's probably not using it for good that way.
Right. Absolutely.
But then the parent in the same aspect is they recognize the pattern. They know their child is going to do this when the situation comes up. If they've applied some consequential thinking to it, they'll know, okay, you know what? We might have a little bit of a tantrum for a few minutes, but that's going to go away and I'll get the outcome I want for whatever the situation is, whether it's getting work done, correcting a bad behavior, correcting a dangerous behavior, or something like that.
So in some ways, too, that modeling might even help the child, right? Because if they're observing all the other things, they're observing that maybe that parent is using consequential thinking, right? As far as how to process, right?
Yeah, and they'll go, hopefully they'll pick up on the fact that, okay, this whole process is not worth it because the consequences are I'm going to have to do whatever they're asking me to do. So they eventually will give up unless they're really stubborn like my children. They don't give up.
I'm in your tribe. So the factors of analyzing and the reflecting, is that something related to thoughts and feelings?
Yeah. When you analyze it, you think it through, and then you reflect on what happened. This is kind of the going over it after it's happened thing. You can do it before, but a lot of times, you'll decide, okay, this is what I did. This is what happened. So I'm going to, decide, this is the result. And that's the analyzing. Did the facts of the situation come out the way I want? And then you reflect on how it could have came out different, what you could have done differently, that kind of thing. And that's not necessarily emotions like we normally describe them, but you're using all those feelings because, the outcome is going to be an emotional outcome. Are you going to be pleased with it, happy with it, or are you going to be upset with it? So it's still emotions, but just in a little bit different way. So you're using the thoughts and feelings to do it.
So combining facts with the human dynamic, maybe unwrap that a little bit, and then we can maybe talk a little bit about making a strategic plan.
Okay. When you go into a situation and you're looking at buying a car, okay, so there's the facts of the situation. Okay, this is, I've done my research and this is the type of car I need. Okay, I've got a family, young kids, so I probably need a van.
Okay, got it.
So you go, okay, I decided that I need a van. I decide that we're taking lots of long trips, so I'll probably want a van with all the fancy DVD players and game systems and stuff like that. I've looked at the reliability ratings, and the Town and Country has the best reliability ratings. How much do I have to spend? How much does it cost? And then there's there's even some emotional feelings about what color do I like?
Right.
What color is the interior? That kind of thing. So those are all the facts that you have. And then you go into the human dynamics. Is this decision going to sit well with my wife? Is she going to agree with all that? In my wife's case, if we were buying a van like that, she would need all the facts and figures. And I know that because we've been together a long time. So the human dynamic dealing with her is she's going to want to see all those facts and figures. And she'll probably ask me to show my work.
Gotcha.
Okay. When you said Town and Country, why didn't you look at the Honda? Well, this is, whatever the situation is. So you have the human dynamics. If she was the one making the decision, she understands me and I don't care. about all the facts and figures. So she's using the human dynamics to buy the vehicle, or we would, have to get together to do that. And it's the same way with any situation you are. There's always some facts and figures, and then there's the human part of it, the emotions, the getting along kind of thing.
So maybe that is a good segue to thinking about making a strategic plan. Maybe talk a little bit about that, how someone can do that.
The strategic plan, if you're really looking at something long term, something longer term than maybe, a car, but it could be, you sit down and you just start that process. You get the facts and figures, you get all that information, you sit with it. These things that I'm looking at, what I really want. In this case with the car, the outcome of getting a car that fits my needs, fits my budget. When you go from being single to married, you have cool cars then. Then when you hit the minivan stage, is that going to sit well with me? And I think anybody that has a family in today's, it used to be station wagon, now it's minivan. Can I handle the emotional drama?
My smile just got so much wider, Jeff, because my wife and I have gone through that stage of when we first were married. It was exactly like you said. It was what we wanted, all the bells and whistles. And then we had kids, and then it was a minivan. Now, my kids are at an age now where they're heading out, and we've transitioned out of the minivan back into the things that we like. So it's very, very interesting you put that way. With a strategic plan, and I know some listeners might be, wow, you mean I've got to sit down and let's take it down the level. It's not as intimidating or as laborious, right, to put that together, is it?
No, it's not. A strategic plan could deal with, I have a work situation where I'm going to have to talk with one of my employees. The strategic plan is, okay, I need to talk with this employee. I need to bring up this information. And my outcome is I want the employee to follow the rules or whatever the situation is. That's a strategic plan. You have your situation, you have your plan of how to address it, and then your outcome is whatever you want from the employee.
That's really great, Jeff, because I think what that does, just as I'm sitting here, it just makes me realize that if I go into a situation like that without a plan, typically not going to be such a good result.
You're reacting instead of responding to the situation. And then the human dynamic part of it is, if you're trying to be emotionally smart, use your emotional intelligence, is that way you present it to that employee takes a big chunk of that, because if you know your employee well, you'll know that they just want to know exactly what's going on.
Gotcha.
They don't need it sugar-coated. Someone else, you have to approach from a different angle. So that's all in that strategic planning.
That's good. That's good, because I think that makes it much more approachable and not as intimidating to do. So I want to kind of go a little different direction and talk about the extremes. And things of that nature, reactive, cautious, and those things. I would imagine these are things that potentially could get you in trouble. And so can you elaborate a little bit on that?
This consequential thinking goes over a spectrum. The easiest one to understand is reactive, where there is no consequential thinking. You don't think about the outcome. You don't think about how you're going to address the situation. You just go into it and attack it. So that's the reactive end. And then you go through different stages, and then you finally get to the cautious. And the cautious stage is where you spend so much time in consequential thinking, weighing the facts and figures, really, really, really spending too much time on a precise outcome and that kind of thing, where you actually get to the point where you can't make a decision.
It's almost analysis paralysis.
Exactly.
Right? We've heard that so many times.
Analysis paralysis. And so that's the cautious, that's the extent of it. So you want to kind of have a balance. When I'm doing a debrief with somebody that has high consequential thinking, that's one of the areas I always explore with them. Are you able to make a decision? And sometimes, yes, they have the high consequential thinking, but they know how to use it, or they use it as a safety net to not have to make a decision.
So if I understand you right, and I think we're saying let's beware of the extremes and try to find some place in balance where again, you're not on the side of the equation where you're reacting without any plan, without any consideration, no consequential thinking, or the cautious, which is the other side of, oh my gosh, I need to think more. I want to look at more. I want to look at more. And you find yourself, you just can't.
You can't make a decision. It's funny. Sometimes you'll have like work committees are the same way.
Right.
Or with work committees, they might have some people that are reactive and some people that are the cautious, and they can't ever make a decision because the cautious people are not getting any of the information they need. The reactive people are bored already. They've already know what they want to do. So these are all dynamics that can have individuals work with teams, work with organizations. I'm sure there are lots of businesses that probably failed because they were at the extreme as a business, reactive or too cautious, where they made stupid decisions or they had a decision they needed to make and they never got to it.
That's really powerful, Jeff, because I can think about it even, from my own life, be it work, be it family or whatever, where I've reacted and my emotions just drove the train of how I felt about it at that moment in time. And then after the fact, after damage done, reflection comes in and you go, you know what? I really wish I wouldn't have used those words. So your tips are right on the money. I've never been one too much to swing on the cautious side because I'm not very patient. But at that same time, I think that's a great illustration about those two poles and how you need to find that center, if you will. I think as the takeaway is that consequential thinking is a tool to help you do better at a lot of the things that we've been talking about in previous podcasts as well, right?
Yeah, it helps you focus on the outcome. I don't like to give a lot of homework because I know everybody is busy, but just after you listen to the podcast, think of a situation. After it's over with, think about how you approached it. What was your pre-work, whether it was long involved or just in the spur of the moment? What did you decide to do? What did you do? And then did the outcome meet what you wanted? And just take a minute. Some people will want to write that out. That's fine if you just go through it in your head. And it could be anything from, did I go McDonald's or did I decide to get a better meal? Gotcha. It could be, or a big thing. It could be buying a car or getting a job.
Okay. And Jeff, one thing that we haven't talked about, would you advise maybe finding someone that you could bounce your strategic plan off of? This idea to say, hey, and let's look at it in our case, we're sitting here together. We've been doing these. And if I say, hey, Jeff, I'm thinking the next podcast, I'm going to try this just to get your feedback, just to get your advice. Do you think that's a good idea?
Yeah, that is a good idea as long as you understand somebody else is coming at it from a different direction.
Gotcha.
And you take it that way. That if you're asking someone to be honest with you, listen to what they're saying. And if it fits, fine. If it doesn't fit, that's okay too. Yeah. But just don't take it as an attack if they don't say what you want them to say.
Yes, that's very good. That's very good. But at a minimum, I think we've made it clear, plan this stuff, right? Use the consequential thinking to help move you where you need to be. So from that perspective, then, Jeff, I think that brings us to the end of this podcast. It's great to see you again. Great to hear your voice. And we look forward to the next time.
I do too. Thank you.
Thanks for subscribing and listening to the Spirit of EQ podcast with Jeff East and Eric Pennington. Spirit of EQ is a preferred partner of 6 Seconds, the Emotional Intelligence Network. 6 Seconds is a nonprofit organization researching what works in emotional intelligence. Best practices are shared through methods and tools that are global, scientific, and transformational. To find out more about Spirit of EQ or to request a speaker, go to spiritofeq.com. Our contact information is in the podcast show notes as well. And now for our special offer.
Hi, this is Jeff again. I just want to let everybody know that if you have any questions or want more information about anything we've talked about, just send me a quick email. And my email is jeff@spiritofeq.com, and I'll get right back with you. Thanks.
Circle270media.com